Chapter 1. Christmas Eve. The snow had been falling steadily over Burlington, Vermont since early morning on December 24th, 2010. By noon, a thick blanket of white covered the streets, rooftops, and the frozen surface of Lake Champlain in the distance. Catherine Morrison stood at her kitchen window, watching the flakes drift down like tiny crystals, each one catching the pale winter light before disappearing into the accumulation below. She was 38 years old, a woman of medium height, with auburn hair that she usually wore pulled back in a practical ponytail. As an elementary school teacher at Champlain Elementary, she had just finished her last day before winter break the previous afternoon. Now, with Christmas Eve upon her, she felt the familiar pressure of last-minute preparations weighing on her shoulders. "Mom, did you remember to get batteries for the remote-controlled car?" Thomas called from the living room. Her 12-year-old son was sprawling on the couch, supposedly wrapping gifts, but mostly just creating a chaotic mess of torn paper and tangled ribbons. "That's exactly why I need to go out," Catherine replied, turning from the window. She checked her watch. It was 1:15 in the afternoon. "I have a list of things we forgot. Batteries, the special wrapping paper your sister wanted, and I need to pick up Dad's gift from the jeweler." Her husband, David, looked up from his laptop at the kitchen table. At 41, he still had the lean build of the college track runner he had once been, though his dark hair was now streaked with gray at the temples. As a civil engineer for the Vermont Agency of Transportation, he had been working from home all week, preparing reports for road maintenance projects scheduled for the new year. "Are you sure you want to go out in this weather?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. "The roads are going to be terrible. We got 6 inches already and it's supposed to keep coming down." Catherine smiled and walked over to kiss the top of his head. "I'll be fine. I've driven in worse. Besides, this is Vermont in December. If we didn't go out in the snow, we'd never leave the house. Can I come?" Thomas had appeared in the doorway, hope lighting up his face. "Not this time, sweetheart. I'll be faster alone, and someone needs to stay here and make sure your father doesn't peek at his presents." She winked at David, who raised his hands in mock surrender. "Where's Emily?" Catherine asked, looking around. "In her room, talking to Melissa on the phone," David said. "They've been on for the past hour planning what they're wearing to the youth group Christmas party tomorrow night." Catherine shook her head with an indulgent smile. Her 15-year-old daughter was at that age where everything required extensive consultation with her best friend. It seemed like yesterday that Emily had been Thomas's age, excited about Santa Claus and leaving cookies by the fireplace. Now she was more interested in boys, makeup, and the latest music. "I'll be back in a couple of hours," Catherine said, grabbing her purse from the counter. She pulled on her heavy winter coat, a dark blue parka that David had given her 2 Christmases ago. It was warm and practical, with deep pockets and a hood lined with faux fur. She wound a red scarf around her neck and tugged on her black leather gloves. "Drive carefully," David said, standing to give her a proper kiss. "Text me when you get to the mall." "I will. I love you. Love you too." Catherine stepped into the attached garage through the interior door. The temperature dropped immediately, her breath forming small clouds in the cold air. Her car, a silver 2008 Honda Accord, sat waiting. She had owned it for almost 3 years now, and it had been reliable through every Vermont winter, never failing to start even on the coldest mornings. She pressed the button to open the garage door and watched as it rolled up, revealing the snowy driveway beyond. The Morrison house was a modest 2-story colonial on Ledgewood Circle, a quiet residential street in Burlington's South End neighborhood. They had moved here 7 years ago, when David got his position with the state, drawn by the good schools and the sense of community. Catherine started the engine and let it warm up for a minute, while she adjusted her mirrors and made sure her phone was in the cup holder. She had made a list on a small notepad: batteries, wrapping paper, pick up David's watch from the jeweler, and maybe, if she had time, stop by the bookstore to get one more gift for Emily. Her daughter had mentioned wanting a particular book about art history, and Catherine thought it would make a nice surprise. At 1:30, she backed carefully out of the garage. The snow was coming down more heavily now, fat flakes that stuck to her windshield immediately. She turned on the wipers and headed down Ledgewood Circle toward Shelburne Road, the main commercial strip that would take her to the University Mall. The roads were slippery but manageable. Traffic was heavier than usual, everyone out doing their last-minute shopping. Catherine drove slowly, maintaining a safe distance from the car ahead of her. The radio played Christmas music, Bing Crosby singing about a white Christmas, which seemed almost redundant given the weather outside. She reached the University Mall at 5 minutes before 2. The parking lot was packed, cars circling like sharks looking for spaces. Catherine drove up and down the rows 3 times before finally spotting someone leaving. She quickly claimed the spot, which was near the back of the lot, far from the main entrance. But at least she had found one. Inside the mall, the atmosphere was festive chaos. Christmas decorations hung from every available surface, and a large Christmas tree dominated the central court, surrounded by tired-looking parents waiting in line for photos with Santa. The air smelled of cinnamon and coffee from the nearby cafe, mixed with the general scent of new merchandise and too many people in too small a space. Catherine made her way to Radio Shack first, where she bought 3 packages of AA batteries and 2 packages of AAA, just to be safe. Then she went to the gift wrap kiosk and selected the silver and gold paper Emily had specifically requested. As she paid, she checked her phone. It was 2:45. She still needed to get to the jeweler downtown. She thought about texting David as she had promised, but decided to wait until she was done with all her errands. No point in sending multiple updates. She would text him when she was on her way home. The drive from the mall to downtown Burlington took 15 minutes in the increasingly heavy snow. Main Street was beautiful, all the shops decorated with lights and wreaths. Catherine found parking on Church Street and hurried through the cold to Pearson's Jewelers, a family-owned shop that had been in Burlington for over 60 years. Mr. Pearson himself was behind the counter, a kindly man in his 70s with wire-rimmed glasses and a Santa Claus beard. "Mrs. Morrison," he greeted her warmly, "I have your husband's watch ready. Let me get it from the back." He returned a moment later with a small navy blue box. Inside was a vintage Omega Seamaster that Catherine had found at an estate sale back in October. The watch had needed restoration, new crystal, cleaning, and a replacement band. Mr. Pearson had done beautiful work. The watch looked stunning, its stainless steel case gleaming, the black dial crisp and clear. "It's perfect," Catherine said, genuinely pleased. "Thank you so much. David is going to love this." "My pleasure. That's a fine watch. Someone took good care of it before it needed the work." Catherine paid, and Mr. Pearson wrapped the box in elegant silver paper with a black ribbon. She tucked it carefully into her large purse. As she stepped back out onto Church Street, she realized it was already 4:15 and getting dark. The snow was still falling, and the wind had picked up, creating small swirling drifts against the buildings. She decided to skip the bookstore. She could order the book online for Emily if she really wanted to get it, or pick it up after Christmas. Right now, she just wanted to get home. The drive back was slower than she had anticipated. Visibility was poor, and the traffic had thickened with everyone trying to get home before the storm got worse. Catherine gripped the steering wheel tightly, focusing on the taillights of the car ahead of her. The radio announcer was talking about the storm, saying it was intensifying faster than meteorologists had predicted. They were now expecting up to 14 inches by midnight. Catherine thought about David and the kids at home. They were probably starting to wonder where she was. She would be home soon, though. Just another 20 minutes, maybe 30 with the weather. She turned onto Shelburne Road and followed it south toward her neighborhood. The streetlights had come on, their orange glow reflecting off the swirling snow. Everything looked different in this weather. Familiar landmarks obscured or transformed by the white blanket covering everything. Finally, she turned onto Ledgewood Circle. She could see her house at the end of the street, the windows glowing warmly with yellow light. She felt a wave of relief and affection. This was home. Her family was in there, waiting for her. Tomorrow was Christmas, and despite the crazy weather and the last-minute rush, everything was going to be perfect. Catherine pulled into the driveway at 5:37. She could see David's silhouette moving past the kitchen window. She pressed the garage door opener clipped to her sun visor and waited as the door rolled up. The garage light came on automatically, illuminating the empty space next to David's truck. She pulled in carefully, straightening the car so it was centered in her spot. The garage door began to close behind her automatically. Catherine turned off the engine and sat for a moment, letting out a long breath. She had made it. Now she just needed to grab all the bags from the trunk and get inside where it was warm. She gathered her purse and opened the driver's side door. The interior of the garage was cold, but not as brutal as outside. She walked around to the trunk and popped it open. Inside were several shopping bags, the batteries and wrapping paper, and a few other items she had picked up at the mall. As Catherine reached for the bags, she heard something, a sound that did not belong. It was faint, barely audible over the wind outside, but distinct. A soft scraping noise, like something being dragged across concrete. She paused, her hand hovering over the shopping bags. The garage was dim despite the overhead light, shadows pooling in the corners. The sound had come from behind her, from the direction of David's truck. "Hello?" she called out, feeling slightly foolish. It was probably just the house settling, or the wind pushing something against the outside wall. No response, just the steady whisper of the wind and the distant hum of the heater running inside the house. Catherine shook her head at her own nervousness and grabbed the shopping bags from the trunk. As she turned toward the door that led into the house, she heard the sound again. This time it was closer, and it was not a scraping sound. It was breathing, slow, measured breathing, very close to her. Her heart began to pound. She spun around, bag still in hand, and scanned the garage. Nothing. Just David's truck, her car, the usual clutter of storage boxes and tools along the walls. The side door that led to the backyard was closed, just as it should be. "David?" she called out, louder this time. Maybe he had come into the garage through the interior door and she just had not noticed. But the door to the house remained closed. Catherine felt a cold prickle of fear run down her spine. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. She dropped the shopping bags and fumbled for her phone in her coat pocket. Her fingers felt clumsy in the gloves. She pulled one glove off with her teeth and managed to extract her phone. As the screen lit up, illuminating her face in the dim garage, a shadow detached itself from behind David's truck. It moved with unsettling speed, far too fast for Catherine to react. She opened her mouth to scream, but a gloved hand clamped over her face, stifling the sound before it could form. Her phone clattered to the concrete floor. The screen cracked on impact, but remained lit, casting a faint glow across the spilled shopping bags and Catherine's black leather glove lying discarded beside them. Inside the house, David looked up from the pot of chili he was stirring on the stove. Had he heard the garage door open? He walked to the window and looked out, but the angle was wrong to see the driveway or garage. He checked his watch. 5:45. Catherine should be home by now. He pulled out his phone and sent her a text. "Home yet?" Getting worried about the roads. The text showed as delivered but not read. David frowned. Maybe she was still driving and couldn't check her phone. He would give her another 10 minutes and then call. In the garage, the overhead light continued to burn, illuminating a scene of interrupted arrival. Shopping bags lay scattered on the concrete floor. A cracked phone screen glowed weakly before finally going dark. The trunk of the silver Honda Accord stood open, swaying slightly in the draft from the heating vent. But Catherine Morrison was gone. Chapter 2. Christmas morning. David Morrison woke suddenly at 6:15 on Christmas morning, disoriented and with a pounding headache. He was lying on the living room couch, still fully dressed in yesterday's clothes. The television was on, muted, showing the early morning news. Pale gray light filtered through the windows, the storm having finally passed during the night. Memory flooded back in a nauseating rush. Catherine. She had not come home last night. Or had she? Everything after midnight was fuzzy, blurred by exhaustion and worry. He sat up too quickly, and the room spun. He pressed his palms against his eyes and tried to think. The last clear memory he had was of 11 o'clock last night, standing in the garage, staring at Catherine's empty car with a growing sense of panic. Before that, there had been hours of frantic calling and texting, checking with friends, calling hospitals, finally calling the police. Detective Sarah Brennan had arrived at 10:30 with her partner, Detective Michael Rhodes. They had asked questions, taken notes, looked at the car in the garage, the scattered shopping bags, the cracked phone lying on the concrete floor. "Mr. Morrison?" Emily's voice made him jump. His daughter stood in the doorway, still in her pajamas, her face pale and frightened. "Is Mom home?" David's heart sank. So it had not been a nightmare. "No, sweetheart. Not yet. It's Christmas," Emily said, her voice small and lost. Behind her, Thomas appeared, his eyes red from crying. The boy had finally fallen asleep around 2 in the morning after David had assured him over and over that Mom would be found, that everything would be okay. David stood and pulled both his children into a hug. I know this is scary, but the police are looking for her. Detective Brennan said she would call me first thing this morning with an update. As if on cue, his phone rang. David released the kids and grabbed it from the coffee table. "Hello? Mr. Morrison, this is Detective Brennan. I am on my way to your house now. I will be there in 10 minutes. Do not touch anything in the garage, and please do not let anyone else go in there either." "Why? What is happening?" "We will discuss it when I arrive." The line went dead. David stood holding the phone, dread pooling in his stomach. Emily was watching him with wide, frightened eyes. What did she say? She is coming here. She will be here in a few minutes. Dad, where is Mom? Thomas's voice broke on the last word. Why wouldn't she come home? She wouldn't just leave us. Not on Christmas. I know, buddy. I know. David had no other answers to give. Detective Brennan arrived exactly 10 minutes later, accompanied by Detective Rhodes and 2 uniformed officers. Brennan was a woman in her mid-40s, with short gray blonde hair and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. She had been with the Burlington Police Department for 22 years, the last 8 as a detective in the Criminal Investigation Division. Mr. Morrison, she said, as David opened the door, I need you and your children to stay in the house while we process the garage. Is there a room where you can all wait comfortably? Process the garage? Why? What did you find? Brennan's expression was professionally neutral, but David could see the tension in her jaw. We have some concerns about the scene. I will explain everything once we have finished our initial examination. Please, if you could just take your children to another room. David led Emily and Thomas to the living room and turned on the television, finding a Christmas movie marathon. Though none of them paid attention to the screen, through the windows they could see more police vehicles arriving. Officers in heavy coats moved back and forth between the garage and a white van marked crime scene unit. An hour passed, then another. Emily sat curled in an armchair, hugging her knees. Thomas had fallen into a restless sleep on the couch, emotionally exhausted. David paced, unable to sit still, checking his phone obsessively even though no one had called. At 9:30, Detective Brennan finally came into the house. She was accompanied by Detective Rhodes, a lean man in his late 30s with dark hair and a carefully maintained goatee. He carried a laptop computer. Mr. Morrison, can we sit down? Brennan asked. They gathered around the dining room table. David insisted that Emily stay. She is 15. She has a right to know what is happening to her mother. Brennan nodded. All right, Mr. Morrison. We have been reviewing your home security system footage from yesterday evening. I did not know we had security cameras, David said, confused. You have a Ring doorbell camera on your front door, and there is another camera system that monitors your garage. It was installed by the previous owners and connects to your home network. Were you aware of this? No. I knew about the Ring doorbell, but I did not know there were cameras in the garage. I never set them up. The system was still active and recording, Detective Rhodes said, opening his laptop. We accessed the footage early this morning with your permission, which you granted verbally last night. I need you to watch something. He turned the laptop so David could see the screen. The image showed a grainy, wide-angle view of the garage interior. The timestamp read December 24th, 2010, 17:37:22. David watched as Catherine's car pulled into the garage. The overhead light was on. He could see his wife get out of the car, move to the back to open the trunk. She reached for shopping bags, then paused. Even in the low-quality footage, David could see her body language change. She was tense, alert. She heard something, Brennan said quietly. On the screen, Catherine called out. Her mouth moved, but there was no audio. She grabbed the bags and turned toward the house. Then she froze again, dropped the bags, and reached for her phone. What happened next made David's blood run cold. A figure emerged from behind his truck. It was impossible to make out details. The figure was dressed entirely in dark clothing, including something covering their face. They moved with terrifying speed, closing the distance to Catherine in less than 2 seconds. Catherine's mouth opened in a scream that never came. The figure's hand covered her face. There was a brief struggle. Catherine's phone fell and skittered across the floor. Then, in a movement so quick it was hard to follow, the figure dragged Catherine toward the side door of the garage, the one that led to the backyard. The timestamp read 17:38:04. Less than a minute from the time Catherine pulled into the garage to the moment she was dragged away. The side door opened and closed. The garage was empty except for the car, the scattered bags, and the phone on the floor. David realized he had stopped breathing. He gasped, his hands shaking so badly he had to grip the edge of the table. Oh my God, Catherine. Emily was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. Brennan reached across and put a hand on David's arm. Mr. Morrison, I know this is extremely difficult, but I need you to focus. Did your wife mention anything unusual yesterday? Anyone following her? Anything that seemed off? No, nothing. She was just going shopping. It was Christmas Eve. Who would do this? Who was that? We do not know yet. The clothing makes identification impossible. Height appears to be around 5 feet 10 to 6 feet. Build suggests male, but we cannot be certain. You said the garage door opened, David said, his mind racing. I heard it. I was in the kitchen and I heard the garage door. It was around 5:30, but she did not come in. I thought she was just getting bags from the car or something. I waited and then I texted her. Horror washed over him. I waited. I just stood there in the kitchen and I waited while someone was dragging my wife away. This is not your fault, Brennan said firmly. You had no way of knowing what was happening. The garage door blocks the view from inside the house. You could not have seen anything. We need to see the footage from the side door, Rhodes said. Can we access your backyard through the house? David led them through the kitchen to the back door. The yard was covered in nearly a foot of snow from last night's storm. At first, it looked undisturbed, a pristine white expanse leading back to the wooden fence that bordered their property. Then David saw the tracks. They started at the garage side door and led across the yard to the back fence. Not footprints exactly, but a disturbed trail through the snow, as if something had been dragged. 2 sets of footprints accompanied the trail, one on each side. There were 2 of them, Rhodes said grimly. Brennan was already on her phone, calling for more officers, for the crime scene team to expand their perimeter. David stood on his back porch, staring at those tracks in the snow, and felt his entire world crumbling. Someone had taken his wife. Someone had been waiting in his garage, hiding, and they had taken Catherine. Chapter 3. The investigation begins. By noon on Christmas Day, the Morrison house had become the center of an intensive police investigation. Yellow crime scene tape cordoned off the entire property. Forensic technicians in white coveralls methodically processed every inch of the garage and backyard. News vans had begun arriving, their satellite dishes extended, reporters setting up shots with the house in the background. Detective Brennan had commandeered the dining room as a temporary command center. A whiteboard had been set up with a timeline of Catherine's last known movements. Her photograph, a recent school portrait showing her warm smile, was pinned to the board. David sat at the table with a cup of coffee he had not touched. Emily and Thomas had been taken to the house of Catherine's sister, Margaret, who lived in nearby Colchester. David had wanted them away from the chaos, away from the police and the constant questions and the terrible knowledge of what that security footage had shown. Mr. Morrison, I need you to walk me through everyone who has access to your house, Brennan said, sitting down across from him. Rhodes stood nearby, taking notes on a tablet. Access? You mean keys? Keys, garage door openers, security codes. Anyone who could have gotten into your garage. David tried to focus. Us, obviously. Catherine and me. The kids do not have garage door openers, just house keys. My parents have a spare key to the front door, but they live in Connecticut. Catherine's sister Margaret has one too, and there is one hidden outside in a fake rock by the back porch. But no one knows about that except us. What about service people? Cleaning service, landscapers, repair people? We don't have a cleaning service. I mow the lawn myself in summer. We had a plumber here about 2 months ago to fix a leak in the bathroom, but I was home the whole time. He never went in the garage. Previous owners? You said you have lived here 7 years. Do the previous owners still live in the area? The Hutchinsons. They moved to Florida. We have not heard from them in years. Rhodes looked up from his tablet. The security camera system in the garage. It is old, probably 8 or 9 years. The Hutchinsons must have installed it. Did they give you any information about it when you bought the house? No. I did not even know it existed. David rubbed his face. How did someone get in? The side door to the garage was locked. I know it was. I always check it. The lock was not forced, Brennan said, which means whoever entered either had a key, picked the lock, or found another way in. We are checking for signs of tampering, but so far nothing obvious. A uniformed officer appeared in the doorway. Detective Brennan, we finished following the tracks. Everyone moved to the backyard. The trail through the snow led to the back fence, which bordered a greenbelt area with trees and a walking path beyond. The fence showed fresh scratches near the top, and there were clear signs that someone had climbed over. 2 people went over, the officer explained. We followed tracks through the greenbelt to the parking lot of the apartment complex on White Pine Drive. The tracks end there. Too much foot traffic in the lot to distinguish anything specific, and the pavement was clear enough that they would not have left prints anyway. So they had a vehicle waiting, Rhodes said. Brennan turned to David. What did your wife usually carry with her? Purse, phone, credit cards? Her phone was in the garage. You found it. Her purse. David felt sick. I do not know. Let me check. They went back inside. Catherine's purse was not in the house. David checked everywhere. The kitchen counter where she usually left it, the hall table, the bedroom. Nothing. She had it with her when she was taken, David said. It has her wallet, all her ID, credit cards, cash. That is actually good, Brennan said. If they use her cards, we can track them. I have already put alerts on all her accounts. What about her phone records? Rhodes asked. Where did she go yesterday? They spent the next hour reconstructing Catherine's afternoon. Cell phone tower data showed her movements from the house to the University Mall, then downtown to the jeweler, then back home. The timeline matched what David had said she was planning to do. Did she stop anywhere else? Brennan asked. Any gaps in the timeline? Rhodes studied his tablet. There is a 20-minute window between when she left the mall and when she arrived downtown. That is longer than it should take. The weather, David said. The roads were terrible. Traffic was heavy. Maybe. Or maybe she made a stop we do not know about. Brennan's phone rang. She answered. Listened, her expression growing more intent. When? Are you sure? She listened for another moment. Send me the footage. We are on our way. She hung up and looked at David. We need to go downtown. Security footage from Pearson's Jewelers shows your wife was not alone when she left the store. The drive to Church Street took 15 minutes. Pearson's Jewelers was closed for Christmas, but Mr. Pearson himself had come down to meet them after police called. He was visibly shaken. I had no idea, he kept saying. I watched the news this morning. I saw about Mrs. Morrison. I did not realize she had been in my shop just hours before. So I checked my security camera, and I called you right away. He led them to a small office behind the main store and pulled up the footage on a computer. The timestamp showed 4:16 p.m. on December 24th. Catherine entered the store, smiling, brushing snow off her coat. She spoke with Mr. Pearson, who disappeared into the back and returned with the watch box. The transaction took about 5 minutes. At 4:21, Catherine left the store. The camera had a view through the front window to the street beyond. As Catherine stepped outside, a figure appeared behind her. It was just a glimpse, someone in a dark coat and hood, but they were clearly following her. Can you zoom in on that? Brennan asked. Mr. Pearson adjusted the image, but the quality was not good enough to make out features. The person was tall, maybe 6 feet, wearing a long dark coat and a hood that obscured their face. Keep playing it, Rhodes said. The footage continued. Catherine walked up Church Street, presumably heading back to where she had parked. The hooded figure followed, maintaining a distance of about 20 feet. Then both moved out of the camera's range. Do any other shops on this street have security cameras? Brennan asked. Most of them do, Mr. Pearson said. Burlington has been pushing for more security cameras downtown for years. For the next 3 hours, Brennan and Rhodes went from shop to shop, collecting security footage from Christmas Eve. Slowly, they pieced together Catherine's movements down Church Street to where she had parked on the corner of Church and Cherry. The hooded figure followed her the entire way. The last clear shot came from the camera at the Church Street marketplace. It showed Catherine getting into her silver Honda Accord at 4:32 p.m. The hooded figure was visible across the street, standing in the shadows of a doorway, watching. When Catherine drove away, the figure pulled out a cell phone. They were calling someone, Rhodes said, reporting her location. There were 2 attackers. One followed her downtown. The other was waiting at her house. How did they know where she lived? David asked. His voice sounded hollow even to his own ears. They followed her, or they already knew. Brennan looked at him carefully. Mr. Morrison, I need to ask you something. Is there anyone who might want to hurt your wife? An ex-boyfriend? A problematic student or parent from school? Anyone she had conflict with? No. Catherine is... She is the kindest person I know. Everyone loves her. Her students adore her. The parents appreciate her. She does not have enemies. What about you? Your work? Have you had any conflicts? Anyone who might want to hurt you by taking your wife? David felt a flash of anger. I am a civil engineer for the State Transportation Department. I review road projects. I do not have enemies who kidnap people. I am not accusing you of anything, Brennan said calmly. I am trying to understand who would do this and why. This was planned, Mr. Morrison. This was not random. Someone chose your wife specifically. The words hit David like a physical blow. Catherine had not been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Someone had targeted her deliberately, had followed her, had waited in their garage for her to come home. Why? He whispered. Why would anyone do this? No one had an answer. Chapter 4. The Search. By the evening of December 25th, Catherine Morrison's disappearance had become a major news story across Vermont and neighboring states. Her photo was on every local channel, along with a description of what she had been wearing: dark blue parka, red scarf, black gloves, jeans, and brown winter boots. The FBI had been called in to assist, given the possibility of kidnapping across state lines. Agent Linda Cowell, a specialist in abduction cases, arrived from the Boston field office late that afternoon. A command center had been set up at the Burlington Police Department. Tip lines were established. Volunteers were being organized for search parties, though the heavy snow and lack of any clear direction made searching difficult. David sat in an interview room at the police station, having answered the same questions over and over. Where had Catherine been? Who were her friends? Did she have any secrets? Any reason to run away? That last question had made him angry. "My wife did not run away. Someone took her. You have it on video. We have to consider every possibility," Agent Cowell had said in her flat, professional tone. Now it was past 8 o'clock. David was exhausted, running on no sleep and too much coffee. Detective Brennan came into the room with a tablet in her hands. "We have been going through your wife's phone records and social media," she said. "There is something I need to ask you about." She turned the tablet to show him a Facebook message thread. It was from Catherine's account. Messages with someone named Ryan Hutchins. David felt his stomach drop. Hutchins, like the previous owners of their house. "Who is this?" Brennan asked. David read through the messages, dated from early December. They were innocuous on the surface. Ryan had reached out to say hello, mentioning that his parents used to own the Morrison house. He was living in Burlington now, working as a software developer, and wondered if Catherine and David would like to meet for coffee sometime. Catherine's responses were friendly but brief. She said they were very busy with the holidays, but maybe after the new year. Ryan had suggested December 20th, but Catherine had declined, saying she had school commitments. The final message from Ryan was dated December 23rd, the day before Catherine disappeared. "Too bad we couldn't connect. I'll be out of town for Christmas. Maybe when I get back." Catherine had not responded to that message. "I did not know she was messaging with him," David said slowly, "but it seems harmless. He is the son of the people we bought the house from." "We are trying to locate Ryan Hutchins now," Brennan said. "He says in his messages that he is out of town, but we need to verify that." "You think he has something to do with this?" "I think it is a very interesting coincidence that the son of your home's previous owners, people who would know the house layout including that security camera system, contacts your wife weeks before she disappears." David felt cold. "Oh my God." "We are also looking at something else." Brennan pulled up another image on the tablet. It was a photo from Catherine's Instagram account, posted on December 15th. It showed their Christmas tree in the living room window, decorated with lights. The caption read, "Getting into the holiday spirit. Love this tree." "What about it?" David asked. "Look at what else is visible in this photo." David looked more carefully. In the reflection of the window, barely visible, was the interior of their garage. You could see David's truck, the storage boxes along the wall, and the side door. "Anyone who saw this photo could have studied your garage layout," Brennan said. "Could have seen where things were. Could have planned where to hide. But her Instagram is private. Only friends and family can see it. How many followers does she have?" David thought about it. "I do not know. Maybe 200? And does she personally know all of them?" David had no answer for that. He had no idea who followed Catherine on social media. It was possible she had accepted friend requests from people she did not know well. Co-workers of co-workers, parents of her students, friends of friends. "We are going through her entire social media presence," Brennan said, looking at everyone who had access to photos of your home, your routines, your lives. The investigation was expanding in multiple directions. Police were interviewing everyone Catherine had interacted with in the days before her disappearance, her co-workers at school, parents of her students, the staff at every store she had visited on December 24th. Detectives visited the University Mall, pulling security footage from every camera. They found Catherine's movements tracked through multiple stores. She had been alone the entire time. No one appeared to be following her in the mall itself. But when she left, walking across the parking lot to her car, a dark blue sedan had pulled out of a parking space several rows away and followed her out of the lot. "Can we get a license plate?" Rhodes asked the security office manager. "The angle is wrong, and the quality is not great. Best I can tell you is it is a blue or dark blue sedan, probably a Honda or Toyota, maybe 4 or 5 years old. It was something but not much. The search of the greenbelt behind the Morrison house had expanded. K-9 units had been brought in. The dogs picked up a scent trail that led from the Morrison backyard through the trees to the White Pine Drive apartment complex, just as the foot tracks had indicated. But there the trail went cold. Police were canvassing the apartment complex, knocking on every door, asking if anyone had seen anything unusual on Christmas Eve. Most people had been at home with family, not looking out windows. Those who had noticed anything only remembered seeing lots of cars in the parking lot, people coming and going, nothing specific. On December 26th, Detective Brennan finally located Ryan Hutchins. He was, as he had claimed, out of town. Specifically, he was in Orlando, Florida, visiting his parents. He had plane tickets, hotel reservations, and photos posted to social media showing him at Disney World on Christmas Day. He has a solid alibi, Brennan told David. There is no way he was in Burlington when your wife was taken. So it is not him? Not directly, but we are still looking into whether he might have given information to someone else, or been involved in planning. David wanted to scream. Every lead seemed to dissolve into nothing. Catherine had been gone for more than 48 hours. He knew enough from crime shows to understand that the first 72 hours were critical. After that, the chances of finding a missing person alive dropped dramatically. That night, David lay in the bed he had shared with Catherine for 16 years and stared at the ceiling. Her scent was still on the pillows, her reading glasses still on the nightstand. The watch he was supposed to receive for Christmas was somewhere in her purse, wherever that was, wherever she was. Please be alive, he whispered into the darkness. Please. Chapter 5. The Audio File. On December 27th, a forensic technician named Marcus Chen made a discovery that changed the direction of the investigation. He had been systematically going through the digital storage of the Morrison's security system, recovering files that had been automatically saved. Most were innocuous. Footage of the family coming and going, the mailman delivering packages, neighbors walking dogs. But there was one file that caught his attention. It was an audio file, time-stamped December 24th, 2010, at 17:36:18. The garage camera had a microphone, Chen explained to Brennan. It was low quality, and usually did not pick up much because of the ambient noise from the heating system and the outside weather. But this file has voices. Brennan, Rhodes, Agent Cowell, and David gathered around Chen's workstation to listen. The audio quality was poor, full of static and the rumble of machinery, but voices were audible. The first voice was male, quiet, barely above a whisper. She is coming. A second voice, also male but slightly higher pitched. You sure? Just got the call. 2 minutes out. Positions. There was silence except for background noise. Then, at 17:37:22, the sound of a garage door opening, an engine, the garage door closing, a car door opening and closing, footsteps. Then Catherine's voice, clear and unmistakable. Hello? More footsteps. The rustle of plastic bags. Then Catherine again, her voice tight with fear. David? The sound of something dropping, the phone hitting the concrete floor. A brief, muffled scream cut off almost instantly. Sounds of struggle. Then a voice. One of the male voices from before, but louder now. Get the door. The sound of a door opening. Wind noise. The door closing. Then silence. The file ended. David had his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking. The sound of his wife's fear, her confusion, her terror, was almost more than he could bear. They were waiting for her, Agent Cowell said grimly. This confirms premeditation. They knew she was coming. They were in position. They communicated with someone outside who was tracking her. Can we identify the voices? Rhodes asked. I will send it to our audio forensics team, Cowell said. But I would not count on a miracle. The quality is poor, and the voices are deliberately kept low. We might be able to determine regional accents or speech patterns, but voice identification will be difficult without a sample to compare against. Brennan was studying the transcript Chen had made of the audio. They said she is coming and just got the call. So someone was following Catherine and called them when she was close. The person from the jewelry store, Rhodes said. The one in the hooded coat. They followed her. And when she headed home, they called ahead to the two waiting in the garage. 3 people minimum, Cowell said. Maybe more. This is a coordinated operation. But why? David looked up, his eyes red. Why my wife? Why would 3 or more people coordinate to kidnap an elementary school teacher from Vermont? What possible reason could there be? No one had an answer. The investigation took on new urgency. If this was an organized operation involving multiple people, it suggested several possibilities: ransom kidnapping, human trafficking, or something more personal that required resources and planning. "Has anyone contacted you asking for ransom?" Cowell asked David. "No, nothing. My phone has been on constantly. No calls, no messages, nothing." "What about your finances? Could you pay a ransom if one was demanded?" David laughed bitterly. "We are comfortable, but we are not rich. We have maybe 20,000 in savings. Our retirement accounts, the equity in the house. If someone wanted money, they picked the wrong family." "Human trafficking, then," Rhodes said quietly. The words hung in the air like poison. David felt his stomach turn. The idea of Catherine being sold, being used, being hurt in ways he could not even let himself imagine, was unbearable. "We are coordinating with the FBI's Human Trafficking Task Force," Cowell said. "They are looking at known networks operating in the Northeast. But I have to be honest, Mr. Morrison. Your wife does not fit the typical profile for trafficking victims. Most are younger, transient, without strong family connections. Your wife is an established member of the community with a family actively searching for her. Traffickers usually avoid that kind of attention." "Then what?" David demanded. "What is the alternative?" Cowell hesitated. "There are cases where abductions are personal, but disguised to look random. Someone wanted your wife specifically, for reasons we do not yet understand. The organization, the planning, the multiple people involved, all suggest this was not a crime of opportunity. Someone went to significant effort to take your wife. We need to dig deeper into Catherine's life," Brennan said. "I know we have already looked, but there must be something we are missing. Some connection, some conflict, some reason someone targeted her." Over the next several days, detectives conducted hundreds of interviews. They spoke to everyone Catherine had known in Burlington and beyond: her college roommates, her professors from the University of Vermont, where she had gotten her teaching degree, former co-workers from the first school where she had taught in Rutland before the family moved to Burlington. They interviewed every parent of every student Catherine had ever taught. They looked at disciplinary records, any incidents where a parent might have been angry about grades or treatment of their child. They found nothing. Catherine had been universally liked. Her worst conflicts had been minor disagreements about classroom management or curriculum choices. Nothing that would inspire the kind of elaborate revenge that this abduction represented. David provided access to all of Catherine's personal effects: her computer, her phone records, her journals. A team of FBI analysts went through everything, looking for patterns, connections, anything unusual. What they found was a completely normal life. Catherine paid bills, emailed friends, browsed recipes and educational websites. She had no secret accounts, no hidden relationships, no gambling debts or drug problems. She was exactly who she appeared to be: a dedicated teacher, loving mother and wife, active community member. "We are missing something," Brennan said to Rhodes on the 4th day of investigation. They were in her office at the police station, surrounded by files and whiteboards covered with notes and photos. "This level of planning, this many people involved, there has to be a motive. People do not just randomly organize to kidnap a schoolteacher." "What if it is not about Catherine herself?" Rhodes suggested. "What if it is about David? Or one of the kids?" "We have looked into David's work. He is a civil engineer. Unless someone is really angry about a road project, I do not see the connection. The kids are in school. Could it be about something there?" They had already looked into that angle. Emily was a sophomore at Burlington High School, a good student involved in the school newspaper and youth group at their church. Thomas was in 7th grade at Edmonds Middle School on the soccer team, doing fine academically. Neither had reported any problems, no bullying, no conflicts. "Wait," Rhodes said suddenly. He started flipping through a file. "When did the Morrison family move to Burlington?" 7 years ago, 2003. "And before that?" "They were in Rutland. David worked for a private engineering firm there." "Why did they move?" Brennan shrugged. "David got the job with the state. Better pay, better benefits. It is not unusual. But was that the only reason? What if there was something in Rutland they were running from? It was a new angle. Brennan immediately started making calls. Within an hour, they had contact information for David's former employer in Rutland and the school where Catherine had taught. "I am going to drive down there," Brennan said. "It is only an hour. I can be there and back before dinner." "I am coming with you," Rhodes said. Rutland was smaller than Burlington, a city of about 16,000 tucked into the mountains of central Vermont. David had worked for Randolph Engineering Associates, a firm specializing in municipal infrastructure projects. Brennan and Rhodes met with the company's owner, Gerald Randolph, in his office. David Morrison? Randolph was in his 60s, a stocky man with a thick white beard. Sure, I remember him. Good engineer. We were sorry to see him go, but I understood. The state job had better security. Better retirement. Cannot compete with that. Was there any reason beyond the job that he might have wanted to leave Rutland? Brennan asked. Randolph frowned. What are you implying? We are investigating the disappearance of his wife. We are trying to understand if there is anything in their past that might be relevant. You think something from 7 years ago led to his wife being kidnapped? That seems like a stretch. We have to explore every possibility. Randolph thought for a moment. There was one thing. It was not about David, though. It was about Catherine. Brennan leaned forward. What about her? There was a man, a parent of one of her students. He developed what you might call an unhealthy fixation. Started showing up at the school, bringing her gifts, writing letters. Catherine reported it to the school administration and eventually to the police. Do you remember his name? Not off the top of my head. This was 7-8 years ago, but I remember David was shaken by it. The guy got a restraining order, but he violated it a couple times. That was right before David took the state job. I always wondered if the move to Burlington was partly to get away from that situation. Brennan and Rhodes exchanged looks. This was the first they had heard of any stalker in Catherine's past. They immediately drove to Rutland's Northeast Elementary School, where Catherine had taught second grade from 2000 to 2003. The principal from that time had retired, but the school secretary, a woman named Dorothy Price, who had been there for 30 years, remembered the incident clearly. "Oh yes, Jonathan Pierce," she said, her expression darkening. That poor woman. It was very frightening for her. Can you tell us what happened? Mr. Pierce's daughter Emma was in Mrs. Morrison's class. Catherine, I mean. She always had the students call her Mrs. Morrison, but we called her Catherine. Anyway, Emma was a sweet girl but struggled academically. Catherine worked very hard with her one-on-one, gave her extra attention. Jonathan Pierce seemed very grateful at first. He would thank Catherine profusely at parent-teacher conferences, said she was the first teacher who really cared about his daughter. But then it changed. Changed how? Rhodes asked. He started showing up at the school unannounced, not just for Emma, but to see Catherine. He would bring her coffee, flowers, little gifts. At first, Catherine thought he was just being appreciative, maybe a little socially awkward. But it escalated. He started waiting for her in the parking lot after school. He would follow her to her car, trying to engage her in long conversations. Other teachers noticed and reported it to the principal. What did the principal do? Called him in for a meeting, told him his behavior was inappropriate and needed to stop. Jonathan became agitated, said he was just being friendly, that Catherine was misinterpreting his intentions, but the behavior continued. He started sending her letters, long rambling things about how she was the only person who understood his daughter, how special she was. Some of the letters were concerning, talking about destiny and connection. Did Catherine feel threatened? Brennan asked. Absolutely. She reported it to the police in March of 2003. They contacted Jonathan, warned him to stop. He did for a few weeks, but then it started again. Catherine got a restraining order in May. Jonathan violated it twice, once showing up at her house, once approaching her at a grocery store. He was arrested the second time and spent a weekend in jail. And then? The Morrisons moved to Burlington that summer. I always assumed it was to get away from him. Emma finished the school year and then transferred to a different school for third grade. I heard Jonathan lost custody later that year due to instability issues. Brennan felt adrenaline surge through her. This was it. A stalker from 7 years ago. Someone with a history of obsession with Catherine Morrison. Someone who had violated restraining orders and been arrested. Do you know where Jonathan Pierce is now? She asked. Dorothy shook her head. No idea. Haven't heard anything about him in years. But you could check with the police department. They would have records. Brennan and Rhodes went directly to the Rutland Police Department. After explaining the situation, they were given access to the file on Jonathan Pierce. It was thick, documenting multiple incidents from 2002 through 2003. Jonathan Pierce was 42 years old at the time of the stalking incidents, making him 49 now. He had been a software technician, divorced, with primary custody of his daughter Emma. The file included several of the letters he had sent to Catherine. Reading them made Brennan's skin crawl. They were obsessive, detailing every interaction Jonathan had with Catherine, analyzing her words and expressions. building elaborate fantasies about their supposed connection. In one letter, he wrote, "I know you feel it too, Catherine. We are meant to be together. Your husband does not appreciate you the way I do. I see you, the real you. And one day you will see that we belong together." Classic obsessive stalker, Rhodes muttered. And look at the dates. The violations of the restraining order were in June and July of 2003, right before the Morrisons moved. "Where is he now?" Brennan asked the desk sergeant who had provided the file. "Let me check." The sergeant typed on his computer. "Last known address is in Springfield, Vermont. That is from 2005. No arrests or contacts since then." "What about his daughter? Emma Pierce?" More typing. "Emma Pierce. Date of birth February 19th, 1995. She would be 15 now." "No records." Brennan pulled out her phone and called the Burlington Police Department. "I need an immediate APB on Jonathan Pierce. White male, age 49. Last known address Springfield, Vermont. Suspect in the Catherine Morrison abduction. Consider him dangerous." As she hung up, she looked at Rhodes. "We need to get to Springfield. Now." Chapter 6. Jonathan Pierce. Springfield, Vermont was about 50 miles south of Burlington, a small town of about 9,000 people situated along the Black River. Brennan and Rhodes made the drive in under an hour, pushing the speed limit on the snowy roads, lights flashing. They had called ahead to the Springfield Police Department, which sent 2 officers to meet them at the last known address for Jonathan Pierce, a rundown apartment building on Summer Street. The building manager, a heavy-set woman named Gloria Chen, looked at the photo of Jonathan Pierce they showed her and nodded immediately. "Yeah, that is John. 2nd floor, apartment 2B. But I have not seen him in a couple days, maybe since the 23rd or 24th. Brennan felt her pulse quicken. December 23rd or 24th, right before Catherine disappeared. "Does he live alone?" Rhodes asked. "As far as I know. Quiet guy, keeps to himself, pays his rent on time. Never any complaints. We need access to his apartment. Do you have a warrant? We can get one, but a woman's life may be at stake. If you give us consent to enter." Fine. Let me get the keys." Gloria led them up a narrow staircase to the 2nd floor. The hallway smelled of old cooking and dampness. She unlocked apartment 2B and pushed the door open. "John, you in here? Police want to talk to you." No response. The apartment was dark. Brennan drew her weapon, and Rhodes did the same. The Springfield officers flanked them. They entered cautiously, switching on lights. The apartment was small, a living room with a couch and television, a kitchenette, a bedroom, and a bathroom. It was surprisingly neat, almost obsessively so. Everything was organized, aligned, clean. "Mr. Pierce, this is the police. If you are here, show yourself now." They cleared each room systematically. No one was home. But what they found in the bedroom made Brennan's blood run cold. One entire wall was covered with photographs of Catherine Morrison. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, arranged in a collage that covered the wall from floor to ceiling. Some were obviously old, from the Rutland days 7 years ago, showing Catherine leaving school or walking to her car, but others were recent, very recent. There were photos of Catherine at Champlain Elementary School in Burlington, standing in front of her classroom, photos of her in her car, driving, photos of her at a grocery store, at the mall, walking into her house on Ledgewood Circle. "He has been watching her for years," Rhodes said quietly. "He never stopped. He just got better at hiding it." In the center of the wall was a large photo of Catherine from what looked like last summer, smiling in her backyard, wearing a sundress. Someone had drawn a heart around her face in red marker. Brennan started photographing everything with her phone, while the Springfield officers called for a crime scene team. Rhodes was going through the rest of the apartment. "Brennan, come here," he called from the kitchen. On the small kitchen table was a laptop computer, closed but with the power light indicating it was on standby. Next to it was a notepad with handwritten notes. Rhodes was reading them, his face grim. "See leaves for Mall 130. Back approximately 5:30. Garage entry. Team positioned by 5. Blue sedan follows from town. Confirm arrival 3 minutes out." It was a plan. A detailed plan for the abduction. And it was in Jonathan Pierce's handwriting. They would confirm that later, but Brennan was already certain. "He did this," she said. "He organized this. But who helped him?" He had at least 2 people in the garage, one following Catherine in town. Rhodes flipped through more pages in the notepad. There were phone numbers with initials beside them. DP 782-4153. MK 782-9921. "Run these numbers." Brennan ordered one of the Springfield officers. While they waited for the results, Brennan and Rhodes continued searching. In the bedroom closet, they found more evidence. A dark hooded coat matching the description of what the figure following Catherine downtown had worn. Gloves. A ski mask. In a box under the bed, they found letters. More letters to Catherine. Dozens of them. Unsent. The most recent was dated December 20th, 2010. Brennan read it, her stomach churning. My dearest Catherine, the time has finally come. I have waited 7 years for you to realize that we belong together. I tried to give you space, tried to let you come to the understanding on your own, but I see now that you need help. Your husband does not deserve you. Your children keep you trapped in a life that is not meant for you. I am going to free you, Catherine. I am going to take you away from all of this. And finally, we can be together the way we were always meant to be. By the time you read this, our new life will have begun. Do not be afraid. Everything I do for us. Forever yours, Jonathan. He is delusional, Rhodes said. He thinks he is rescuing her, which means he is keeping her alive, Brennan said, hope flaring. If he wanted to hurt her, he would have done it already. He wants her with him. He has a place, somewhere he is keeping her. One of the Springfield officers came back with information on the phone numbers. First one belongs to Derek Patterson, age 31, address in White River Junction. He has a record: assault, breaking and entering. Served 2 years in state prison. Released in 2008. Second number is Marcus Kowalski, age 28, lives in Montpelier. Record for drug possession and theft. Hired help, Rhodes said. Pierce paid these guys to help him grab Catherine. Put out APBs on both of them immediately, Brennan ordered. Armed and dangerous. Wanted in connection with kidnapping. The forensic team arrived and began processing the apartment. Brennan seized the laptop, which would be taken to the FBI's cyber forensics lab. If Pierce had done any research or planning on that computer, they would find it. We need to find where Pierce would take her, Brennan said. Does he own any property? Have access to any buildings? They pulled Pierce's records. He rented the apartment. No property ownership. His employment history showed he had worked for various tech companies over the years, mostly as a freelance contractor. His most recent job had been with a small software company in Springfield, but he had stopped showing up for work on December 20th. Check relatives, Brennan said. Does he have family in the area? Anyone who might let him use a property? The Springfield police ran down Pierce's family connections. His parents were deceased. He had one brother, Michael Pierce, who lived in New Hampshire. They contacted Michael immediately. Jonathan? Michael sounded shocked. I have not talked to him in over a year. He is not well, has not been for a long time. What has he done? We believe he has kidnapped a woman. Do you know if he has access to any properties? Anywhere he might take someone? Properties? No, John does not own anything. He can barely hold down a job. But, Michael hesitated, there is our parents' old house. They died in 2007 and 2009. The house has been sitting empty ever since. John and I could not agree on whether to sell it, and we kind of just left it. It is up in the Northeast Kingdom, near Island Pond. What is the address? Michael gave it to them. 462 Old Mill Road, Island Pond, Vermont. Island Pond was in the far northeastern corner of Vermont, near the Canadian border. Remote, isolated, surrounded by forest. It was nearly a 2-hour drive from Burlington. That is where he took her, Brennan said with certainty. That is where he is keeping her. They were moving before Michael had even hung up the phone. Brennan called for backup, contacted the Vermont State Police, requested tactical support. This was it. They had found him. The drive to Island Pond felt like it took forever. Brennan was on the phone constantly, coordinating with multiple agencies. The FBI was sending a hostage rescue team, but they were coming from Boston and would not arrive for at least 2 hours. Vermont State Police Tactical Unit was mobilizing out of St. Johnsbury, 45 minutes away. We cannot wait, Brennan told Rhodes as they sped north on Interstate 91. If Pierce realizes we are onto him, he might run. Or worse. They did not say what worse meant, but both were thinking it. If Pierce felt cornered, there was no telling what he might do. By the time they reached Island Pond, it was past 10 o'clock at night on December 27th. The small town was dark, most houses already closed up for the night. They met the Vermont State Police at a gas station on the edge of town. 4 troopers, heavily armed, in tactical gear. Old Mill Road is about 3 miles north of here, the lead trooper, Sergeant Rick Barnes, said, spreading a map on the hood of his cruiser. Isolated area, woods on all sides. The house sits back from the road about 100 yards. Long driveway. No neighbors within half a mile. Perfect place to keep someone, Rhodes muttered. Our approach? Barnes asked Brennan. No lights, no sirens until we are on the property. I do not want to spook him. We surround the house, cut off escape routes, then make contact and try to negotiate. Our priority is getting Mrs. Morrison out safely. They drove in convoy, headlights off, using night vision. Old Mill Road was barely maintained, more of a dirt track with snow filling the ruts. Trees pressed close on both sides, branches hanging low. The Pierce family house appeared suddenly in the darkness. A 2-story farmhouse, old and weathered, sitting in a clearing. There were lights on inside. A vehicle was parked in the driveway, a dark blue Honda Civic. That is the car, Rhodes said, checking the license plate against their records. Registered to Derek Patterson, one of Pierce's accomplices. So at least 2 of them are here, Brennan said. Pierce and Patterson. Maybe Kowalski too. They parked a quarter mile away and approached on foot, moving through the snow-covered trees. The tactical team spread out, surrounding the house. Brennan and Rhodes took position behind a large oak tree with a clear view of the front door. Through the windows, they could see movement inside, shadows passing back and forth. Do we have eyes on Mrs. Morrison? Barnes asked through the radio. Negative, one of the troopers reported. Cannot see into all the rooms from current positions. Brennan made a decision. We go in. On my mark. Announce police presence. Demand surrender. If they do not comply, we breach. Everyone moved into position. Brennan's heart was pounding. This was it. After 3 days of searching, they had found Catherine Morrison. She had to be in that house. She had to be alive. On 3, Brennan said. 1, 2, 3. They moved as one unit, converging on the house from multiple directions. Barnes hit the front door with a battering ram, the wood splintering. Police! Search warrant! Show your hands! Brennan and Rhodes were right behind him. Weapons drawn, adrenaline surging. They entered a living room with old furniture and peeling wallpaper. A man was on the couch, jumping to his feet in shock. Young, maybe 30, with a shaved head and multiple tattoos. Derek Patterson, Brennan recognized from his mugshot. Get down! On the ground now! Barnes shouted. Patterson raised his hands, eyes wide with fear. Okay. Do not shoot. Where is Catherine Morrison? Brennan demanded. Upstairs. She is upstairs. Please do not shoot. 2 troopers stayed with Patterson while Brennan, Rhodes, and Barnes rushed up the narrow staircase. There were 3 doors on the 2nd floor. They kicked open the first. Empty bedroom. 2nd, bathroom. Also empty. The 3rd door was locked from the outside. A heavy padlock hung from a hasp that had been recently installed. Mrs. Morrison! Catherine! Are you in there? This is the police! Brennan shouted. A muffled sound came from inside. Crying. Someone crying. Barnes shot the padlock off. Rhodes kicked the door open. The room was small, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet, with one small window that had been boarded up from the outside. There was a mattress on the floor, a bucket in the corner, a battery-powered lantern providing dim light. And on the mattress, wrists bound with duct tape, ankles tied with rope, a gag in her mouth, was Catherine Morrison. Her eyes were wide with terror, tears streaming down her face. She was wearing the same clothes as when she had been taken. Blue parka, red scarf, jeans. Her auburn hair was matted, her face bruised. We have her! Brennan shouted into her radio. Medical needed immediately! Rhodes was already cutting the ropes at Catherine's ankles while Brennan gently removed the gag from her mouth. Catherine gasped, sobbing. You are safe, Brennan said, her voice shaking with emotion. You are safe now, Mrs. Morrison. We are police. We are taking you home. David, Catherine choked out. My husband, my children. They are fine. They are safe. They are waiting for you. Catherine collapsed against Brennan, sobbing uncontrollably. Brennan held her, feeling the woman shake with relief and trauma and exhaustion. Where is Pierce? Rhodes asked, looking around. Where is Jonathan Pierce? Gone, Catherine managed to say. He left this morning, said he was going to get supplies. He has not come back. How many people have been here? 3. Jonathan and 2 others. I do not know their names. Derek Patterson and Marcus Kowalski, Brennan said. We have Patterson downstairs. Where is Kowalski? He left with Jonathan. Brennan immediately radioed the information to the teams outside. Pierce and Kowalski were still at large, potentially armed, Dangerous. Paramedics arrived and began examining Catherine. She was dehydrated, bruised, in shock, but alive. Miraculously, horribly, alive. As they helped her down the stairs and into the ambulance, Brennan stayed close. "Mrs. Morrison, I know this is difficult, but I need to know. Did Pierce say where he was going?" Catherine looked at her with haunted eyes. "He said he was going north, to Canada. He said we were going to start a new life there, that he had a place prepared. He kept talking about how we would finally be together, how he had waited so long. He is insane. Completely insane." "You are safe now," Brennan repeated. "We will find him, and you are going home." Chapter 7. Reunion and Resolution. The ambulance rushed Catherine Morrison to North Country Hospital in Newport, the nearest facility. Brennan called David from the back of the ambulance, where she had insisted on riding along. "Mr. Morrison, this is Detective Brennan. We found her. We found Catherine. She is alive." The sound David made was not quite a cry, not quite a gasp, but something in between. "Oh my God. Oh, thank God. Is she okay? Is she hurt?" "She has been through a traumatic experience, but she is physically okay. We are taking her to North Country Hospital in Newport. You should come now. I am leaving right now. Tell her I love her. Tell her I am coming." David made the 2-hour drive from Burlington to Newport in 90 minutes, Emily and Thomas in the back seat. The entire way, he kept his hands clenched on the steering wheel, hardly daring to believe it was real. Catherine was alive. She was safe. They had found her. At the hospital, they were directed to the emergency room. Detective Brennan met them at the entrance. "She is okay," Brennan said immediately, seeing the panic in David's eyes. "She has some bruises, dehydration, and she is in shock, but she is going to be fine. Can I see her?" "The doctors are still examining her. It should not be much longer." They waited in a sterile waiting room, the minutes crawling by. Emily held her father's hand tightly. Thomas sat pressed against his other side, silent, his face pale. Finally, a doctor came out. "Mr. Morrison, you can see your wife now." They followed him down a corridor to a private room. Catherine was sitting up in bed, an IV in her arm, wearing a hospital gown. Her face was bruised, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, dark circles under her eyes, but she was smiling. When she saw her family, her face crumpled, and she started crying. "David, oh God, David." He crossed the room in 3 strides and gathered her into his arms, holding her as carefully as if she might break. Emily and Thomas crowded in, everyone crying, holding each other. "I thought I lost you," David whispered against her hair. "I thought I would never see you again. I am here. I am okay. I am here." They stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other, reassuring themselves that this was real, that they were together again. Eventually they sat down, and Catherine began to tell her story. She spoke slowly, her voice sometimes breaking, but she needed to say it, needed them to understand what had happened. She told them about pulling into the garage on Christmas Eve, about hearing the breathing, about the hand over her mouth before she could scream. She told them about being dragged through the snow, thrown into a car, a cloth held over her face that smelled chemical and made everything go dark. When she woke up, she was in that small room in Island Pond, tied up, terrified. Jonathan Pierce was there, sitting in a chair, watching her. "He said he had been waiting 7 years for me," Catherine said, her voice shaking. "He said that I had always belonged to him, that David and our marriage and our life together was all a mistake. He said he was saving me. He kept calling me his soulmate, his destiny." "Did he hurt you?" David asked, his jaw tight. "He hit me once when I screamed for help, but mostly he just talked. He talked for hours, about how he had watched me all these years, learned my schedule, my routines. He knew where I shopped, where I taught, everything. He had photographs, hundreds of them. He showed them to me like he was sharing memories. It was horrifying." Emily was crying quietly. Thomas looked like he might be sick. The other 2 men, Derek and Marcus, they were just there for money. Pierce paid them to help. They did not talk to me much, just brought food and water. Pierce was the one who was always there, always watching, always talking about our supposed future together. "Why did he leave this morning?" David asked. "He said he needed to prepare the house in Canada. He said we were leaving tonight, that our new life was about to begin, but he never came back, and then the police came." Catherine looked at Brennan, who had entered the room quietly. "Thank you. Thank you for finding me." "You are very welcome, Mrs. Morrison," Brennan said. "And I need you to know, We are going to find Pierce. Every law enforcement agency in Vermont, New York, New Hampshire, and Quebec is looking for him. He will not get away. In fact, Jonathan Pierce did not get far. At 3:30 in the morning on December 28th, he and Marcus Kowalski were stopped at a border crossing checkpoint in Norton, Vermont, trying to enter Canada. Border agents, alerted to the APB, recognized Pierce immediately. Both men were arrested without incident. In their vehicle, police found detailed plans for a house Pierce had rented in rural Quebec, maps, supplies, and a folder containing more photographs of Catherine. Pierce was charged with kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, assault, stalking, and multiple other offenses. Derek Patterson and Marcus Kowalski were charged as accomplices. All three faced significant prison time. The trial, when it eventually came months later, was brief. The evidence was overwhelming. The security footage, the photographs and letters from Pierce's apartment, Catherine's testimony, the planning documents. Pierce's defense attorney tried to argue diminished capacity due to mental illness, but it did not matter. The jury convicted him on all counts. Jonathan Pierce was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. Derek Patterson received 15 years. Marcus Kowalski, who cooperated with prosecutors, received 10 years. Epilogue. Catherine Morrison returned home to Burlington on December 30th, 2010, exactly 6 days after she had been taken. The house on Ledgewood Circle was filled with flowers and cards from neighbors, friends, students, and strangers who had followed the story. The community had rallied around the Morrison family during those terrible days, and the outpouring of support was overwhelming. Recovery was not easy. Catherine had nightmares for months. She could not go into the garage without feeling panic. The memory of those hours tied up in that cold room, listening to Jonathan Pierce's delusional ramblings about their supposed destiny, haunted her. She worked with a therapist specializing in trauma. She attended support groups for kidnapping survivors. Slowly, with David's unwavering support and the love of her children, she began to heal. She took the spring semester off from teaching, using the time to focus on her mental health and her family. When she returned to Champlain Elementary in September of 2011, she was nervous but determined not to let fear control her life. Her students made her welcome home cards. Her colleagues had decorated her classroom. The principal gave a speech about courage and resilience. Catherine cried, but they were good tears. David had the garage completely renovated. New locks, new security system, better lighting. He wanted Catherine to feel safe in her own home. They also moved the following year, unable to fully shake the associations of that house with the worst experience of their lives. The new house was in Essex Junction, closer to Catherine's school, with a cheerful yellow exterior and large windows that let in lots of light. Emily struggled with anxiety after her mother's abduction. She had therapy too, learning to manage the fear that something terrible could happen at any moment. Thomas became protective of his mother, always checking to make sure she was okay, worrying when she was out of sight. But families are resilient. They adjusted, adapted, found new normals. They celebrated Christmas in 2011 with extra gratitude, extra awareness of how fragile and precious their time together was. Years passed. Emily graduated high school and went to college. Thomas grew into a teenager. David and Catherine marked anniversaries, not of the day she was taken, but of the day she came home. Catherine never forgot Detective Sarah Brennan, the woman who had worked tirelessly to find her, who had been there in that terrible room when the door finally opened. They stayed in touch, occasional emails and holiday cards, a connection forged in the worst circumstances, but valued nonetheless. In 2015, Catherine wrote a book about her experience. It was not easy to revisit those memories, but she wanted to help other survivors, wanted to raise awareness about stalking and the importance of taking threats seriously, even those that seemed minor at the time. The book was titled Just Her Car, A Memoir of Survival. It became a regional bestseller and led to Catherine speaking at conferences and schools about safety, awareness, and resilience. Life moved forward, as it must. The trauma did not disappear, but it became part of their story, rather than the defining element of their existence. On the 10th anniversary of her abduction, December 25, 2020, Catherine stood in her kitchen in Essex Junction, watching snow fall outside the window, just as she had 10 years earlier. David came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking?" he asked softly. "I am thinking how lucky I am," Catherine said. How easily it could have ended differently. How many people never come home. But you did come home. You are here. We are together. We are together, Catherine agreed, turning to kiss him. And that is all that matters. In the living room, Emily, now 25, and visiting from Boston where she worked as a journalist, was arguing cheerfully with Thomas, now 22 and in his final year at UVM, about what movie to watch. The Christmas tree lights twinkled. Cookies were baking in the oven. It was an ordinary Christmas, which made it extraordinary, because Catherine Morrison had been given a second chance, had been found and rescued and brought home, and she never, not for a single day, took that gift for granted. The mother had not come home from Christmas shopping that terrible December evening in 2010. Just her car had returned, standing empty in the garage, a silent witness to a nightmare. But the story did not end there. Against terrible odds, through dedicated police work and sheer determination, Catherine Morrison was found. She survived. She healed. She lived. And that made all the difference.